Couples who have not had sex for years, just take sex off the table. Sexless relationships are more common than you or anybody ever wants to talk about. So let's talk about it. Hi, I'm Dr. Catalina. I'm a psychologist specializing in sex and relationships. And let's break down why sexless relationships are so prevalent, how come people stay stuck in them, what you can do and how it's an opportunity to actually have great sex and improve intimacy in your relationship. Let's get to it and let's talk it up. So many couples find themselves in sexless relationships because they end up feeling like roommates, and that trickles over time. Sometimes, but not always, is there some cataclysmic event that leads to it. Generally, life just be lifing. And with life stressors, unfortunately, sex is the first thing to go. Oftentimes in heterosexual cis relationships, there's the orgasm gap, where men are experiencing more orgasms than women. And because of that, and because of patriarchy, sex has generally been focused on male pleasure. And in long-term relationships, they're not impervious to that either. All of us are affected by sexism. And particularly in heterosexual relationships, unfortunately, too often, the focus isn't on female pleasure. And so over time, women aren't as pleasured. And next thing you know, if it's not a fun party to go to, they're not going to it. Also things like menopause and fatigue. Fatigue is the #1 reason that heterosexual women say they are not in the mood for sex. And a lot of that, particularly amongst dual income earning couples with children, lies in the fact that women are carrying the majority of both the emotional and household labor. And so with that imbalance and that fatigue also comes some resentment. Resentment that is projected to the partner, but then that women are feeling like they are mad that they are doing too much, more than they want to in their relationship. And then they project that onto their partner. And so all of those factors can influence how a partner is gonna feel attracted to their partner and actually want to please their partner. But then on top of it, when our body is stressed and overwhelmed, there isn't capacity. There's just not capacity for pleasure. Pleasure is something that when our body feels safe enough to do it. When you are constantly overwhelmed, constantly stressed, constantly frustrated with the world around you and at home, your body, that's why sex is the first thing to go. You know, on average, couples take about 7 years to present to therapy. And by that time, so many of the dynamics and habits in a relationship, that's just the way the relationship works, right? So a lot of couples, a lot of people don't believe in therapy. Therapy is very much a Western construct, and while younger generations are more open to it, older generations aren't. Gen X and boomers aren't as much. And so a little bit of it is people's perceptions of therapy in general and speaking to a stranger about intimacy, particularly intimacy. You can feel there's a lot of shame around it, you know? And so between that and the fact that when people think about sex, they often think, I want more and better sex. Give me something we live in a medical model where change happens fast. And the reality is that this didn't happen overnight. Couples don't get into sexless relationships overnight, and it will take effort. Doesn't always have to take a shit ton of time, but it will take some time. And repetition, consistency, predictability, and control are the 3 things our body needs to feel safe enough to actually have change. In relationships, you are constantly re-triggering each other. And so that dynamic makes it really hard to change, because when one person changes, they get triggered by the other person's consistent behaviors, and that just keeps on hitting it up against each other. And so that's what happens. And so I think a lot of times people think, you know what, people think, oh, if I can go to 1 or 2 sessions, then that'll fix everything. That doesn't work. And the next thing you know, they don't believe in therapy. Same thing happens with erectile dysfunction. A lot of men, if there is any kind of overwhelm or anxiety around that, they'll think, okay, I'm gonna go take some Viagra. If there's anxiety or relationship stress, that's not gonna work. Right? And so then what happens, it's already hard enough for men to go get support for that and acknowledge that there's a concern. But then they try it a couple times, it doesn't work, and then they give up. And so I think between the stigma around therapy, finding a therapist that actually is trained and skilled at not just doing couple work, but doing sex and intimacy work, and being able to actually give both concrete and experiential strategies to patients and working with the body. I think all of those things, and then finding the match, are all realistic barriers, which are absolutely manageable. But it makes sense why couples may not be as into that. And what we know with couples is that it's often a woman who brings a heterosexual couple into therapy, and that mismatched libido is one of the most common concerns that brings it. The reality is that first and foremost, there just needs to be a fairly thorough assessment of what is actually happening. And not just what's happening in the relationship, but what happened with each of the individuals as well. I typically will meet with a couple together for that assessment, but then I'll also do individual as well. So because I do want them to feel completely open to be able to do that. I'm also not a telephone, so that's their time to actually give me that information, but to inform our work together. And that's the difference between therapy versus coaching is there really is a formal assessment and a theoretical formulation of what's happening here, right? And then it's really beginning to start small. Couples who have not had sex for years, just take sex off the table. Penetrative intercourse should just be taken off the table. Again, predominantly for heterosexual couples, but for any orientation. If sex is been off the table, it's not even worrying about it for the time being. You've got to work outside of the bedroom and work on building back up that safety in a relationship and that security, that trust, because oftentimes there is so much resentment in a relationship. And resentment, I believe, it's projected onto our partners, and I'm resenting you for this. You made me do this. No one makes us do shit. We resent ourselves for overstepping our own boundaries and doing things that aren't aligned to our own needs, wants, and desires. We just project that onto our partners. And there just needs to be a lot of healing around that and rewiring around that and new learning. And so it's a dynamic process. It is not linear, and it's simple, but it's not easy. And it does require a commitment from people. And I think that's the thing. Love isn't all that's important in a relationship, but it is absolutely the love that you leverage and the commitment to it that actually provides the safety to actually work on it. So when I work with clients, there needs to be a bit of a commitment that there won't be a threat to a relationship. There won't be a threat to divorce or a threat to leave for a certain amount of time. And generally that's at least 6 months if we are working on mismatched desire. One thing to keep in mind with mismatched desire is that there is no right amount of sex that is healthy. There's no how long it should be or how often it should be. There is no right amount. Again, sexual satisfaction is not correlated to function or frequency. And so people who are asexual and not engaging in any type of sexual activity can be sexually satisfied, And so the whole thing with mismatched desire is that it's just a mismatch in this relationship. And it is causing problems in this relationship. That's it. If you change partners that's more aligned with where you're at, it won't be a problem. Unfortunately, that people don't often do that. Not fortunately or unfortunately, people stay together for all sorts of reasons. And so it's appreciating that, and that it is just about that mismatch, and then figuring out, first and foremost, one, not to pathologize somebody. Too often, the partner who has the lower libido in the relationship is pathologized. You're the problem. And are you going to get your desire back? or are you going to do, and again, this happens for both genders. Oftentimes in heterosexuals, it's oftentimes put more on the woman, but it definitely happens with both. Women absolutely say, why won't you go fix your ED? I've told you to do this. And there's so much shame around it. Like, you know, and masculinizing, or masculinating, whatever that is, around that why would you want to? You know, then sex becomes this thing that couples just don't even want to talk about, and they can't talk about, because anytime it does come up, it's gonna be a fight, you know? And so next thing you know, your bodies just get used to it. And you're not just pushing each other away in the bedroom, you're pushing each other away outside the bedroom. Couples who are often in sexless relationship aren't even holding hands, you know? And there's this animosity, there's this tension around them. And so much of addressing sexual concerns is addressing relationship concerns. And a lot of those relationship concerns that are now coming to the surface likely were there from the beginning. Because again, this is where attachment theory and how couples relate to each other, that's why you see problems at the beginnings of relationships, unless they are addressed and managed and nurtured, are absolutely going to persist 20, 30, 40 years into the relationship, unless they're actually addressed. If you are looking for support around this, and one, know that you are not alone. Know that this is super, super common, and that it, for everyone, at some point in your life, life be lifing, whether it be health, stress, grief, whatever the stressor is, we're not always gonna be in the mood. Desire isn't always spontaneous. It can be spontaneous or it can be responsive. I'll talk about that in another video. But if you do not want it to be this way, it doesn't have to be this way. And couples, absolutely, mismatched libido can be an opportunity. It can open and spotlight what are the fractures in a relationship and nurture and repair those, okay? And so there are absolutely a lot of somatic as well as relational, cognitive behavioral strategies that we know work and that can foster that connection and deepen that intimacy. And so if you're wanting to learn more, feel free subscribe to this channel and follow me, The Intimacy Doc, and feel free to reach out. And I have lots of different programs and also have a private practice, so feel free to reach out.